Okay, we'll start tonight's City of Olivet Planning Community Design Commission for March 5th, 2026 to order. Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Certainly. Robert Giorgio,
Present.
Jenna Nat, if she's absent, Tim Spiegelglass,
Present.
Sam Wallach,
Present.
Felicia Ford,
Present.
Laura Ragsdale,
Present.
and Petrie Powell, present.
All right, let it also be known that our City Council liaison, Brian Lewis is in attendance, as well as Carlos Trejo, the City of Olivet's Planning Community Development Director, Dawn Doty, Senior Planner, and Jack Carswell, Planning and Zoning Administrator. I don't think we have anybody else online or anything.
No, sir, not at this time.
Okay, so we've all done this before, so I don't think we need to go over the instructions. If somebody does pop on by chance and they do want to add a public comment, how about we pick it up at the end? Does that sound good? Okay, we'll do that, and we'll defer that to later. So we'll move on to item 3, which is discussion regarding petition review process. Jack?
Good evening, Commission. So about a few months ago, we had the session with the city attorney going over, just the commission guidelines and the code behind related to the review process. And I gave like a little intro presentation into how those reviews are conducted. I do want to note that you guys all have a flow chart. This is something I'm actively working on. It's going to be edited and changed and to reflect the process that Carlos and I were discussing today. But for instance, what you're going to see here is just that, something will come into the city. I will determine whether it's, and I'll do an initial review of that project to see, if it hits certain requirements that would designate it for the commission review. Once I've done that initial submission review, it will go to a completeness check and my in-depth review. So that those two boxes are going to be merged together as one. So when I do this completeness check, I'm going to be looking for all of the submission standards, if they have their project report, if they have the stormwater plans, if they have their arborist report. If they don't, if they're deficient, I'll send it back to them. They have 30 days to make the submission complete, whether that's, adding one existing tree that's missing on the plans or giving us a whole stormwater plan. They're held to that 30-day time frame. The petitioner, it's the ball's in the petitioner's court then. So then if we don't hear from 30 days, that permit or action will be voided. However, if I do get revisions within 30 days, Carlos and I were talking this morning or this afternoon that would go into, that starts my 30-day timeline then. So this 15-day staff review timeline is inaccurate on the side. I'm sorry about that. I have yet to update this flow chart, but that's going to be when that 30-day timeline is. So when Carlos and I were discussing this today, it was more about making sure that we can get this information out to you guys earlier in the weeks and in the process within that 30-day timeline so that you guys will see our EDM stormwater consultants letter prior to it coming to the commission. And we did work with this saying that as the revisions received, that we would send the revised plans to the stormwater consultant once the plan set's designated complete. So then we're not sending something to the stormwater consultant and it's missing, the elevation of the pit or the distancing that maybe Curtis would need for his review. So just making sure that that's actually all considered complete prior to us sending it to the consultant, and then that the comments also from the consultant would be addressed either with the commission if the review's done in a timely fashion from our outside consultant, or that it would just then be addressed prior to applying for the building permit. So that's kind of the process of our PCDC review, but I would by the next meeting, I'm going to have this flow chart all edited, correct, and then you guys can see it actually from the information I was just discussing. I know it's kind of hard for me to phrase this to you, and then the flow chart is not as accurate as what I'm saying up here.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
So the thing that frustrates me just a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit is, we had, I think going back to 2 meetings, the gentleman had submitted the stormwater report and our stormwater consultant had not yet reviewed it. And we wanted him to go and talk to the neighbors. And it seems to me is that projects shouldn't come here until they are complete. And that means that a stormwater review has taken place. And so if it can't be done within the allotted days, then maybe the ordinance needs to change to account for that. And in terms of talking to neighbors, I think that's an easy box to just check. Yes, this person said he talked to the neighbors, or yes, the neighbors have been consulted. And then that way, we're not reviewing stuff, and then they get mad that they got to wait another 2 weeks for us to process it. I just think we need to have a complete file when we're here. And if we're going to ask a stormwater review consultant to review something, then to me, until we get that report, the application is not complete. That's just my personal opinion. I don't know how anybody else feels about it.
I don't disagree, but I do know sometimes developers, they're so anxious, and sometimes
Time is money.
time is money, and they want to get, they think it's minor and they want to get, moving with
But
this.
if you're telling them they need a stormwater report, then it's not minor. That's, to me, that's one of our major things that we always talk
Yeah.
about.
Oh,
I mean, it seems like when we're looking at stuff, we're mostly focused on that and maybe some of the architecture, but the stormwater is so important that, to me, I don't want to see an application until that report's been done. If the report, if the application is otherwise complete. Because you don't want to do a stormwater report and find out, oh, they changed the dimensions on the building or whatever. So that's just, I just think it would expedite things here.
I definitely agree in principle, Petrie. My view on how we've handled this most of the time is that we approve subject to a stormwater report, and we assume that if it comes back and it fits within whatever our guidelines are, the staff says, okay, great. Because I don't know that we really have, we're not stormwater experts. If the stormwater consultant says it's good, I think generally we say, all right, sounds good, sounds great to us. So like it's a point of emphasis. It's important for us. I don't know how much we normally have to say.
Right.
That the one you're talking about in general was a little bit of an unusual situation in that
He was delayed another 2 weeks to be able to talk to the neighbors.
Right.
It wasn't so, and the report from our consultant had not been done yet.
yeah,
And to me, then that means that coming to us was premature.
yeah.
I would just note that that submission that was however many weeks ago was compliant with our submission standards. Us going out of the way and submitting it to the stormwater consultant is, my understanding, is not code, right? That's just us getting additional insight on the project. So for the PCDC, it would be approval. I agree. And
So it is a requirement,
but
whether.
it would be subject to you guys because you guys were the ones to defer it as for the insight from this consultant.
We don't, just to be clear, we don't send it out to the consultant every job. It's just when the commission says we'd like to do it, or you guys say.
Carlos and I think are now going to the route of doing all new homes with the consultant and just making sure that that's handled. But yeah, just right when we get those and it's deemed complete.
The actual site plan, maybe there are other little details that don't require a change to stormwater, calculation, but I get the whole, subject to, it's a delay no matter how you do it. It just seems to me is that if we let people know that we're gonna need to review this and that's gonna take time. And so the delay, it just seems like we could cut down on how much time we have to spend if we are just going ahead and saying, you gotta have this.
It puts more pressure on you guys.
Yeah.
Well, and there's two components because it's not the pressure on that. The whole contract with the stormwater consultant is to evaluate the calculations, the sizing, and the construction. That's all they're providing to the commission in there. Now, in the situation that we had the last meeting, the commission, after some concerns from the neighbors, wanted to broaden that. And so then we go back to the stormwater consultant to ask them to take a look at the grading or other options or concerns that were brought forward. Because again, by code, they're providing that on-site detention. They're reducing the volume of detention that was going off to that site. If we see something ourselves that, hey, this if there's a big slope or we're at the bottom of the hill, we may ask them for some input, but in this case, nobody had brought any concerns or issues till that meeting.
Well, we
So-
have the
so-
neighbor, that brought concerns.
Correct, at that meeting, and
That was signed off by somebody.
correct, by the
They-
petition. Mhm.
To me, that should have been the end of the discussion, personally, but.
And I concur. And again, the commission is under no obligation to act on a petition that night. Now, my staff and myself are under an obligation to bring it to the commission within a window. We don't have that choice or that flexibility in there. So there's two things that we can kind of take a look at. Again, what we're asking the stormwater consultant to do, because it's kind of a contractual thing. And then, if we want to expand their analysis, it's something we can take a look at and see what those costs would be.
I still like the idea if we have a known water issue, affecting adjacent properties, that we, do get that review to include that, talk about it, especially if there's a simple thing that could be corrected that could kill two birds with one stone. I think we owe it to the neighbors that are there, and we also just don't want to get blamed for something later down the road that was a pre-existing issue.
And just to make sure, and again, if at the meeting, a concern is brought forward towards the commission regarding drainage, at that point, I mean, the commission has the authority to defer action and request that we consult with the city stormwater consultant to take a look at what was brought forward. And
Well,
at that point, we have no problem.
on that one case, though, it was clear that they had done more to control the water than what they were even legally obligated to do, and yet we still kicked them back another 2 weeks in order to get some input from the neighbor, who it wasn't an engineer. And I mean, the engineering report was signed by an engineer or
But
whoever does
remember,
that.
That engineering report is specific to just that
I,
project.
I understand that, but it was very specific. Well, okay, sorry.
And it's meeting the code requirements that we have for that specific property. So whether it addresses anything else that could be going on in that area that could be addressed, I don't think it was, that wasn't the intent of what that engineer was doing.
I thought that engineer had said that they had reduced how much stormwater, the new building was gonna create far less stormwater runoff than the existing building. So they had done that work, which
That-
would affect positively the neighbor. And maybe the neighbor needed to just, maybe there's just a check mark. Did you discuss with your neighbors? Did you, because again, it was another 2 weeks, and it wasn't so much that we needed a consultant to review it. It was hung up on consultation with neighbors.
But remember, our codes make it better. By them building the house and putting in the water retention system that's required, that is better than what was there before, by code.
Right. And so why did we postpone doing it just for the sake of him talking to the neighbors? I mean, that was my point that night too. So water under.
Because that only looks at that particular property rather.
No,
than what-
it looked at the stormwater runoff to the neighboring properties, and it was going to be less than what was there.
Based on our current codes. Yeah.
I will think everyone else's mics are on. Okay, sorry. I will say, I don't think, my understanding was when that review letter came in, it was specific to that property with what was designated from his suggestions on the site. So, I mean, the only information our stormwater consultant is getting is all of the plans that you guys all see as well. So he's not, getting the full scale neighborhood plan, and he's really just sending in these remarks based off of that one property. I do agree there was, this commission discussion pertaining to that project, and there were, additional suggestions from the stormwater consultant, but then we brought it back and we all had the discussion, and it was found out that it was not necessary. So, I mean, I think it was beneficial for the consultant to have the review process just for the additional, mitigation methods, but I do also see the point of, if it was to code, but I think it's all in the right of the commission to request that, and you guys did, and it got deferred, and, now we're here and it's approved. So.
There's also a lot of gray areas in construction, and an engineer that's working for the property owner and that's working for the developer that's worked with him for 15 houses is going to treat it differently than somebody that's an outside person. Just because you have that stamp doesn't mean that you're looking out for the cities and the neighbor and everybody else's best. They're looking out for the cost of it and that owner of it, and that they don't get sued in 10 years down the road.
Good point.
So there's a reason why you bring outside counsel in for these kind of things that know what they're doing and is watching our backs and watching the city's backs.
And to just jump onto what Tim's point was too, is like with the changing, or not, we're not changing anything with the review process, but with the timeline and how Carlos and I were talking through it now, is when that plan is designated complete, that plan will be sent directly to the stormwater consultant. And then I do have that 30-day timeline to designate when they go to that meeting. So if all of a sudden, there's 2 meetings in the month, the first meeting, we don't have the review letter back yet, we're subject to hold them to the second meeting to allow additional time for that letter to come in. So I think it's just also something internally with our reviews that, I can clean up, and hopefully that will enhance the process, and you guys will get that stormwater information earlier, where we're not putting the commission in a position to defer it because we're bringing an incomplete submission before you guys.
Okay.
Additionally, Carlos and I were going through some of the PCDC review obstacles that just come up when I'm doing those general reviews. For instance, these accessory structure projects, I have to hold them to the same submission standards as a new home. There's no differentiation within the code. For instance, it requires, a streetscape elevation. And why would we want to see a streetscape elevation of a pool if it's behind the house and you don't see it from the street? So I just have to, I always have to make these petitioners aware that they can exclude any information that they may seem that is not necessary. However, you guys all have the right to request that information, and we will always make it apparent to the commission on what information the commission or the petitioner decided to leave out, or, did not feel that was necessary as part of their submission. So it's just been something a little bit challenging within our review process, and we wanted to see, some insight from the commission on whether it's necessary for just a flat work project to come here, or a pool to come here, or these 2-dimensional projects. We haven't had anything related to, a sports court or a bocce ball court or something yet, but then how does that work within those 2-dimensional structures too? And we were thinking of just if that goes down if that's something where we increase the numbers of that flat work the flat work is 200 square feet bigger, and that means then it has to go to the commission or something like that, where internally staff works, we come to you guys with some updates and see how we have that discussion. But then it's kind of, then I'm just not holding, a 1,000 square foot patio to the same standards as a whole new home. So it's kind of been challenging within that review process.
I think that makes sense. How do you guys all feel?
I thought we had some of these things that triggered a review that you guys could do administratively things, but like the flat work, if they're over,
I think
certain square footage.
And we do have that. I think it's maybe more within our current submission standards. I don't know if it's something that internally staff just needs to, decipher. These are all the standards for a new home. These are the standards that are for, a flat work project. And then it's just outlined in that way. So if someone was applying for an accessory structure, here's the submission standards that wouldn't be applicable to a new home. And then I'm currently working through those submission standards, kind of playing around. I'm working on a PCDC review guide where it's like all of the information on how staff conducts their reviews. And I'm going to put that into there and then bring it before the commission to just inform you guys and also get additional insight before it's something, we utilize or post onto our website.
Sorry, you would say accessory structures that is basically flat work should be viewed differently than, say, a garage or an ADU?
They're just held to the same standards. So it's looking as like a building there. I get calls, related to why do I need these architectural plans, or what am I looking at from, these additional standards? Well, if you're putting flat work and it doesn't do anything with, utilities or something, sometimes they get the boundary surveys and they don't check the box for utilities and they don't pay for someone to mark where those utilities are. So sometimes these little standards that are applicable to all new homes, we do get some pushback from certain petitioners saying, I don't find that information necessary. Why do you need this for this small of a project or something around those lines?
So make it more efficient.
Just make it more efficient in terms of for the petitioner, but also for you all
Yeah.
in terms of them. We're not bringing a pool to you because it's 1 square foot over that needs to come before the commission and then it's just approved, versus if there's additional insight, of course, but then we can kind of streamline that process.
One of the things too that Commissioner Spielglass had brought up. So we do have like certain levels that we can review and authorize administratively. What we found with some of these, it doesn't take much to get over 500 square feet of flat work of a patio, and that's what we're starting to see that we had one that was maybe like 550 or 590. We had to bring it to the commission. It was flat work, so there's really not, the value added by the commission was pretty minimal. I'm not going to say that you guys didn't bring any input, but there was, if that was on a 1 acre, a half acre lot,
Right.
it was an unnecessary obstacle they had to go through just so they could get to the permitting. And I think that's what Jack's kind of referring to. And in addition to that, the way the code is currently written is that we would have them submit up to the same standards as a new house would, so.
So we want to change some of those administrative thresholds, right?
Just looking into that and then, talking within staff internally of how we can see how this plays out, working with those numbers and then bringing them back before you guys to get some additional insight, of course.
Yeah.
And I think when we put those together, we were trying to be conservative it was a whole new, process that we were trying to implement in there. And I think we found we're dealing with those 10 to 15% cases that fall in between.
Yeah.
I would like to see on your flow chart references to the city ordinances that where things are required and why, so that if somebody asks us why, or where's your authority, it's on there. I just think that makes sense. Same way with when this comes up, frequently asked questions, even just, do you need to, I know we have that, but if you were just putting in flat work for a patio / or a pool or basketball court, you do not need to do, or you only need to do, whatever the case may be, but we ought to highlight the ordinance. And if we need to ask for the ordinance to be changed, then we need to ask for the ordinance to be changed.
So then the other two things on the obstacles are related to our ordinance, which is 2821, which is the trees. So if Carlos, if you would go to the next slide, I will just start talking about that, but I'm going to go grab my notes real quickly if I don't have them up here. So the first thing, this is all, very early in the process. We're not asking for action on anything tonight, just presenting this to you as this is still, I'm still actively working on, cleaning up the changes and working on the text and wordsmithing. But for instance, we're just looking at changes for the arborist report / tree inventory plan. Those changes can be seen on, it's not anything significant. Everything that you guys came up with and council came up with is all included within here as part of those standards. It's just now we're going to merge those two together. So Carlos, if you go to the next slide, it's kind of easier to see. So that's kind of this, like the ideal arborist report would be coming as a table. The ideal tree inventory report is what you're going to see on the right. And we're making sure that tree inventory report includes all of the protection information that we want to see. The replacement plan, we've run into some complications and it's been tricky in terms of with the commission as well. Our ordinance states that it has to be by a certified arborist. We have seen plans that have come in that have been by a certified landscape architect, and it seems like the commission has been cognizant or, for instance, I'm thinking of like a few properties that have come in, two, for instance, that had no tree, really, or one tree on the lot They submitted a letter. That letter was by a landscape architect. The commission all reviewed it, but was cognizant, and the information was all presented, in the same way an arborist would. So we're just kind of in a predicament when it comes to reviewing, as like we have to hold them to the standard of a certification from an arborist. So we don't want to be in a position, we approve something from a landscape architect. Someone comes here, my neighbor got this approved. They got it reviewed by a landscape architect. Why can't we do it? So that's been a little predicament in terms of the review for the trees.
It's definitely going to be an extra expense.
Yeah.
For the, I'm looking at the landscape plan that's right there. You paid somebody to do this lovely, what I assume to be code compliant landscape plan, including trees. And technically they meet all the requirements. I'm confused as to why these terms are not, these professions are not interchangeable for this purpose.
Yeah, I don't know enough about the difference between the two. Does an arborist have scientific knowledge where it makes them a better person to evaluate the health of the tree when they're putting together the table,
Yeah.
and the architect is more
But
design
they-
focused?
Yeah, but the arborist is not going to draw you a plan like that.
Right, yeah,
So
right.
you're
Yeah.
this is like a full employment act here with this tree thing,
And I think that's where the complexity came in, because when we put this together, it was specifically, and I think it through the discussions, that it just require an arborist. And while I think it is beneficial to have an arborist to do the assessment, it's not necessarily beneficial to have the arborist do the design work
Right.
for the replacement, because we already are telling them by code what you can use and all that. But I do believe I would have more faith in an arborist assessing the conditions of the trees than I would on a landscape architect. But when we went through the process, it was made, and I'm just gonna say, it was made specifically clear, it has to be an arborist. And a certified.
For the
arborist.
tree inventory.
Well,
It was for the whole ordinance. At the very top, the applicability was applied for all of those sections as certified by an arborist.
Yeah.
So with these changes that I'm working on, it would be the arborist in the tree inventory would be by an arborist, and then we would allow an arborist or a certified landscape architect to do the replacement plan, which would be designating the species for replacement, the criteria that you guys all came up with the native species, the 33% diversity, that all stays. It's just now it'll be applied to a landscape architect or an arborist who are
Yes.
both within
Yeah.
certification.
Just for the replacement.
Just for the replacement plan. The inventory will
So-
always be done by an
so-
arborist.
So this plan that we see in front of us, this, color coded, technically they don't even have to do this.
No, this actually came in as a bonus submission for that project. The one on the left is the arborist report and the replacement plan that was submitted for the same property. These two are the same addresses.
Okay.
Per our code, I have to review the one by a certified arborist. So the one on the right is very pretty, they hit all of their replacement quantities for trees related to our code. However, I have to review the one on the left where they didn't meet the standards and the information doesn't match. So that was where we were in a predicament, and we're still working with that to get that smoothed out and clear. But hopefully with the text changes in the ordinance, that will not put us in a position where we're getting two plans from the same petitioner.
Exactly.
Yep.
Makes sense.
Can we go back a slide?
Yes.
Just for a
I'm
sec?
very quick.
Okay. You tell me if this is industry standard or whatever. The color coding for the preserve
yeah.
or
Nope.
to be removed
horrible.
makes no sense.
Yeah,
This,
I said the same thing.
this is the industry standard. This
I
is
would
how they do
I would
it?
assume every Frontenac forestry plan we see is to that color coding.
Okay,
So that's
all right.
it was tricky. The first tree report I saw that came in and I was, to be removed is in green. I
Yeah.
was like, that's kind of odd, but everything I've seen, I know it now because I've been looking at them all, but
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It's good news for them.
Workers.
Hey, oh, go on, sorry.
No, that was it. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't the ones setting it.
no, that's not set by us. That's how Frontenac sets them into us.
I think our city and what we had a discussion about the insulation and some other things, that we are adding so much cost to these jobs that these people are coming into. Now, you got to use a certain arborist, or not certain, but there's only so many that are going to do it in the city. And now, or you can use a landscape. This is not where I put my fault in. I would say any stamp would do for this thing, and this is our requirement. That's my opinion. I don't,
For
I
e-
think
For even the assessments?
for even the assessment. Yeah, I would say we just want a stamp on the thing. I would be even okay with actually, honestly, an architect doing it as well. We want somebody to take responsibility for that they're saying that it's right, not the homeowner.
I don't know. I think there's a lot of people that might be upset by that, but I'm willing to discuss it. But I think there's gonna be a lot of people that are gonna say landscape architects is only gonna do what the builder wants. And it's gonna be more about, it may not be looking at from the tree's point of view. I know that sounds kind of funny, but that's just my thought. And I think I like the idea of giving the exception to the replacement, because that way we don't, it's almost like the contractor's doing the landscaping anyway. So it would minimize the cost with the arborist, which maybe is better.
And we would be looking at it as now that replacement plan doesn't have to be submitted before the commission either. It can be submitted during the building process. For instance, if the homeowner hasn't, the new homeowner is occupying the home, wants to say in the species of trees they have on their lot, then we'll give them the opportunity to have that. But they would not be given occupancy until approved and those replacement trees are planted. Yeah.
I'm not,
Yeah,
and if
I'm
if
okay
anybody
either
else
way,
feels
too,
the
as
same way, or just you want to talk about it. I mean, I think that's, I'm more than willing to discuss it, but I'm afraid that that's going to give us some problems down the road, or some, people are going to be upset.
Just another consultant that these guys have to put in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a whole nother deal to deal with. It's a lot, it's adding up. I mean, I could see it. Like, you have a civil guy, now you have an arborist, you have a landscape designer, you have, your MEP guy. I mean, you have 10 consultants to build the same house that they're building over and over again, basically. And that's a lot to put on these developers.
Maybe they
But-
should just move into an existing home and not tear one down and build a new one.
Just add up, just keep on going up with it.
But are other cities doing this?
I think so. Wasn't that part of our?
Yeah, we did some research, and I think for the most part, the assessment component, majority of cities were requesting an arborist. Now, for the replacement component, that I couldn't tell you for sure.
Yeah.
I'd have to go back, and I'd be glad to take a look at the communities around here.
I don't think we need to do that for the replacement.
there.
I'm just talking about the assessments.
I think the assessment, yes, for the arborist, but I don't think, I mean, a landscape architect can look up whether the tree that they are
Yeah.
proposing is on our list,
Yeah.
Right.
right?
Great.
So why do we need the arborist to continue to be involved?
Definitely, totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Maybe
agree with
that's
that part of it.
that's the
Yeah.
compromise position.
And I'll
possible.
come before with more text changes.
And I agree with you, Tim. I mean, I'm glad you brought it up, because I do think, we're all talking about affordability and stuff like that, and also trying not to make it so restrictive. So, bringing up those ideas from, construction point of view, it's good, because we need to be careful, that we don't overcomplicate something. So,
You don't want to be that city, I'm telling you. There's
Yeah.
a city by us, and everybody knows there's a tax on that city when they go through it.
right.
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 So then just some other changes was in terms of like the way that they get their credit for their the credit towards their existing stock of trees that they're preserving. I just added a tidbit on there that was like, trees whose trunks are not fully on the property. Sometimes we see those, they give us the inventory, the trunk is halfway between two people's properties. I'm just putting it as that they would not be credited for that tree for preserving it because it's, a shared tree, or I don't know how to designate from my review stance, if it's I don't know if it would be 1-to-1.
I think it should, I agree with you. I mean, if it's on the fence line and they have to protect it, I think it counts.
You would think if it is like half and half. you
Tie
would
goes to
think-
the runner.
Yeah, they have to protect it. I'm all for the protection of it. I have that. I'm saying that they wouldn't get credit towards they wouldn't like dock, if they have 8 replacement trees required, that tree will be protected, but that's not lowering their 8 to 7, is what I'm saying.
I'd give them credit for
You'd give them credit because I think it's just gonna make our,
But asking people now to put trees in between houses instead of in the front yards. So to then down the road, not give them credit for the very tree we asked them to plant and where we asked them to plant it, doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, if it's, I have a big tree in my yard and I know that my roots are underneath the driveway next door.
I'm talking about when the surveyor submits it and the circle is on the property line, split in half.
Yeah, the circle is.
The circle is,
right?
the circle, no, the circle, the
Okay,
DBH.
So the trunk, give them credit.
Okay, let me ask you a question.
Mhm.
Why don't you want to take credit, give them credit for that?
I would think that I was under the impression we were surveying all the trees on, fully on the lot and going from there. I mean, I don't understand how you can have a situation where a developer comes in and says, oh, I want to remove that tree, but that tree's half on 2 people's properties and, they're already doing the effort to protect it. Well, then maybe if they are putting the protection methods, but it comes down to I don't know. I'm trying to think of how it would work within the calculation stands too. It shouldn't be complicated, but
Why don't you look at that?
Yeah, I'll
Just
look into
see
it.
What the
Mhm.
impact, because if there is some reservation that you have.
well, I also presented that in front of the commission about a property earlier and stated that they would not get credit for the ones that were this, and we approved it and I know we need to look into it and then go from there, but I was under the impression that that was the direction. Sorry.
So if the tree is on the property line and it falls, then whose is it?
Wherever it's.
Very complicated. I can tell you that.
I mean, I'm just, if it falls
So-
on my neighbor's house, the neighbor's homeowner insurance has to pay for it.
But then what if they said, well, no, that's their tree?
That's not true.
That's-
Whatever falls on your property, you're responsible for.
Well,
I know.
I've
they-
seen
they
it-
can-
I've seen it
they
go
can
both ways,
see
though.
People argue it, but your
think-
house
I've seen it- I've
insurance
seen
is
it go
not gonna
both
pay
ways.
for your neighbor's house. to be
In
repaired.
insurance clauses?
I've
That-
seen it. So at my mom's house in the northeast quadrant, the neighbor's tree fell and took out her fence and part of the deck. And they said, well, no, that was the neighbor's tree. That's not our problem. And my mom had to pay to have those repaired.
She should have sued them.
Yeah. So, I mean, but
Yeah.
I'm saying but it was right on the property line.
But it's
How
like
I-
if you were trimming the tree, you can trim everything
Thing
that's
on your side. That's what I've
yours.
always heard.
And so,
Yeah.
I mean, I've never heard of where you're not responsible for whatever falls on your property. I
Yeah.
mean, like,
I've heard
never-
that same thing that Petrie says, but
I've had
to
that
point to Tim's point, it is a gray area where people like to fight it, so.
Like Petrie, like you mentioned, there's a certain, it just offends fairness a little bit here. Like if you have a whole row of trees that you think of as being part of your yard and they happen to be on the property line, and we said, no, none of those count. Like I think most people would say that's not equitable. So, I mean,
not after we actually ask them to put the trees.
right, yes. So I mean, I would suggest that we should count those.
See what it looks like to your calculations. And then if you see some things that are problematic, bring them back and then we can kind of, revisit or counterpoint.
Then the other things related to are just in progress is we're figuring out how this ordinance apply to a lot that's already clear cut. There's nothing in the ordinance that, implies or forces the developer to actually implement those replacement trees. We want to make sure that, we have a notation in there that if the lot's already clear cut, you're subject to, your lot's the size, you're subject to establish those replacement trees back on the property.
We don't have that already?
I don't think that's specifically noted in the ordinance.
Oh, I thought we did.
How do you know what trees were there?
We don't, well, so it's
Doesn't matter.
in Olivet, you can just remove it. Yeah, so if, the house was 10,000 or on a 12,000 square foot lot and the whole lot's clear cut, they'd be subject to just installing 5 replacements. And then if they don't, it doesn't fit, we still have the ability for them to come and vouch before the commission, like, hey, I'm going to do this type of planting or this native, as a response to not being able to fit all 5 trees on my property. So it was just that's going to be in progress, and we're wordsmithing that. And then we're also working on addressing the removal of trees that were deemed to be protected, but then that were later removed due to construction. We've had certain properties who have had, valid reasons of why those trees had to be removed later within the process. But then how does that work in terms of, like, one instance was 9500 Old Bonham had some trees in the corner. Those trees were gone. However, they did place replacement trees as a response to those 3 being removed. So we just want to make sure that we get something in the ordinance, concrete into this, so that that information is there if someone was to ask, or we run into an instance that, someone sees this giant tree that's deemed to be protected, and then we come back after framing and it's gone. Yeah.
Makes sense.
So that's just what we're doing. I will work on looking at how that fits within the calculations and how we can work with that. And then go from there. But that I'll come before the commission next meeting with more concrete changes and some more edits, and then we can go through the discussion related to that if we aren't flooded with items.
Just to play the devil's advocate
Mhm.
on this, should there be a penalty imposed if something happens to the tree where somebody takes it down, they know they were going to take it down? I'm just throwing that out there, like they come to the commission, we tell them, we think you need to keep that tree. And then all of a sudden, magically, that tree gets knocked down. And then it's just a replacement tree. Something to think about.
You mean a penalty beyond having to add a replacement tree?
Yeah.
But I mean, we have existing houses have the matter of right to tear down as many trees as clear cut the entire yard and never plant a replacement tree. So and maybe it's within so many months of the approval of plan.
I get the impulse. The trouble is, like, intent.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes,
how are we going
that's
to
it.
prove
Yeah.
that someone
That's it.
maliciously removed a tree they said they were going to keep? Like, that's impossible for us to do.
I think it's just that, hey, they said they were gonna protect these trees, they didn't. Maybe that they get double the trees. Maybe instead of 1 tree, now you have to replace it double, just to make, we want more, right, keep them honest and make it better for our community. That's what we're looking for.
Yeah. It's just a thought, okay?
I wanted to come before the commission to have those discussions so that we
Kinda
get that
think about it,
going.
but-
Yep.
I just run the scenario in my head where we're arguing over this contractor to keep that tree. We finally agree to. Well, I'm repeating myself, sorry. Making this longer.
So that's everything. Just be next meeting. I'll come back with some changes. I'll look into, how we would apply the credit then for, shared trees or going that direction. If that's, we want to do that, then I want to make sure that we have something in our inventory that's noted. I know we do see it occasionally, if whether it's shared or not, it is noted on there. However, we'll just make that as part of the table requirement then, so that it's always comes in on every arborist report. Okay, right. I think that's everything I have related to trees in the review. So thank you.
Thanks,
Right.
Jack.
Thanks, Jack. That was great.
Good job.
Okay, we'll move on to item 5, 2024 comprehensive plan update, implementation discussion.
Chairman, the first thing, as part of the comprehensive plan, so we did adopt, we forwarded recommendations to the council regarding data centers and such. At the last meeting, there was discussions about the buffer, and we were trying to get some maps put together. We told the commission we would bring these forward you tonight. So on the upper left-hand corner is a 300-foot buffer from property zoned residential and public activity. Public activity includes most of our parks, schools, and government facilities in there. And you can see on there, again, looking at the map on the upper left corner, if you look at the upper left corner of that map, you would see the areas with the crosshairs that show what would be outside of that 300 feet. And on the right side of that upper left corner map, you'll see in the Dillman Industrial Price, the properties that would be meet the conditions of 80 or 120,000 square feet to pursue a data center if they wanted to. Now, the lower right corner map, we increased that buffer to 500 feet. And then you can see the changes that would happen measuring again from parks or anything zone PA and residential properties. So up on the upper left-hand corner of that map, that's what we call Bauer. You'll see one property that would have the ability. And on the right-hand side in Diehlmann Price, you would see that that narrows down to 3 properties.
What's going to happen when that bike trail goes?
Depends on what we decide, what the city decides to zone it as. In the past, and I'm not exactly sure how it was initiated. The bike trail on the south side of Olive, I think, is zone PA, public activity, in there, but that does not necessarily reflect it on the north side as much. And you can see, the railroad on the far north end, they had it zoned industrial. So it could stay unzoned. We can create a new zoning designation for trails. Or we can deal with that at that time. Again, there would still be at least one parcel if Diehlmann Industrial and Price were completely eliminated of the opportunity. There would be one up at Warson Price, excuse me, Warson Bauer. Go ahead.
Hi. I just wanted to kind of call out some specifics. The taking into consideration the language of the proposed legislation, it is any residential anything zoned residential, and it's in that description there. So it broke down the LID, or light industrial properties, into 3 basic sections: 80,000 square feet and over, and 120,000 square feet and over. And then drawing the 300-foot boundary and a 500-foot boundary from all of those green parcels. That's the combined ones that are considered those residential. The ones that are gray are going to be things like your COR and office, the planned office retail. So there are some that don't, qualify in that green, but drawing from that green, and those properties that are over those that size, or sorry, the lots that are over that size that are still kind of left over are the ones that are hatched. And I tried to make it a hatching that was large, but looking at it on the screen, you can't really tell one blue from another. If there's any question though, as to which ones are 80,000 square feet and which ones are 120,000 square feet, that's not, it certainly knocks it down quite a bit if you're at the 500. But you can still kind of delineate on the 300-foot buffer as well. Any questions?
So essentially, the 500 feet reduces down the number of parcels that can have a data center.
Correct.
Down to 4.
Down to 4.
Better than none.
I'll go through that. This one here is the art frame, or what is it?
I believe that is. Oh,
They
I'm
they
so
do
sorry.
frames for artwork and some signage. They did the signage for Irvington Place, which was nice to see that they were using a local business. This one here is a multi-tenant warehouse that includes the Schnucks Floral.
That one I know.
And then this one here is a multi-tenant, more commercial. You have ImageNet, the Artery, Floral by Design, the USGS facility. So they kind of have more of a customer, they're not retail, but more of a customer type of facility than manufacturing and such. And then this right here is Heispico. They had just bought the building, relocated from Maryland Heights in here, and they sell, I'm just going to use the term widgets, a variety of different type of widgets.
What do you think the noise is going to be like from a site that's 1,200 1,200 square feet or bigger versus 80 square feet?
It'd be a couple of different things because again, we define the size of a data center within its structure, and then this is the parcel, the lots.
Yeah.
So we have the minor data centers which go up to 20,000 square feet, data centers or mid data centers which go up to 99,999 in there, and then the mega data centers, anything over 100,000 square feet is prohibited. So even a mega data center would be hard to fit. 999,000 in here is going to be difficult to fit and meet all the criteria. It is possible, and they could do structured parking.
I wouldn't
in
think
there.
so in the 80,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe you would have to have the 120 and have a building that size, so it would depend on the building that they have on site, and what kind of sound mitigation methods they employ. But truly, these are from the parcel boundaries
Yeah.
and don't reflect the main buildings or
building
impervious
size.
surfaces that are existing.
It's my understanding from news reports, and it's just news reports, I don't have any documentation, is that, the buzz sound that comes from these, if we're talking about the places that are the hot topic now, is 1,000 feet or more. 24/7, a buzzing sound is heard. The noise pollution is dramatic.
1,000?
1,000. And that, I brought that up to, and that would eliminate any, really probably any parcel here, but I think if we're serious about not creating a place for these massive centers that create noise, major noise issues, and the impact on water and electricity, and I think a lot of people, you'll have people coming out of the woodwork because of the noise issue alone.
At night,
Huh?
especially at night.
Yeah, it's 24/7.
No, but it's more pronounced at
Yeah,
night,
yeah. Well,
with all the other noises that are gone,
Yeah.
street traffic.
noise travels differently. Sometimes I can hear 170, sometimes I can't hear,
Yeah.
depends, winter is different, but I've seen several news reports that have interviewed people that live more than 1,000 feet, and it's bzzz all night, day and night.
I wish I
And that's why in the process, I mean, because recognizing that, we made sure to eliminate any sizable parcel that could get even past the 100,000 square foot threshold. The ones that you hear about right now are I mean, close to in the millions in square footage. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not, they have turned the mega centers, and we those are just incompatible with our neighborhood character and our values. We're not going to allow those at all.
Right.
What we're doing is, looking at this mid-sized range to smaller ones, and then establishing and requiring performance standards to be applied in addition to that, and restricting it through the buffer setbacks in there. So
But I'm wondering is if we should do just like a hybrid approach. You do a 300 if it's a smaller data center or smaller lot size. I'm not sure exactly if that would coincide together. And then the 500 for the larger one that would still be allowed.
it's possible. In there, we went just to keep the writing of the ordinance easier, because we created a tier system for the data centers in there, but we just kept the buffer at 500 regardless.
Right. But like I said, that's what I'm wondering, if the noise between those different sizes is going to be different, then maybe you offer 300 for, the smaller ones and 500 for the larger ones. Thinking that the noise is going to be greater, than that. And I'm hoping that what Petrie brought up, the 1,000, was for the megas that aren't allowed. However, if there's some way we could somehow quantify that, be curious of that article,
Yeah.
because,
I'll try to locate what I read.
yeah, that would be great. Because there is nothing more annoying than, yes. That's a very good point.
Do we have standards for mitigating the sound? If they were to come,
Yes,
what would that be?
let me pull up the ordinance.
While he's pulling it up, I think one of the things that's tough from a council perspective is, and Carlos has called us out, we can't put regulations in place that basically just outlaw it. Because if we do, then you can be sued or you're not allowed it at that point, similar to what we had for marijuana. On the flip side, if we put these and then a data center comes and submits and they've hit all the criteria, we're not going to have really much ground to stand on to say no on those kind of things too. But it's a balance, I think, because
I thought
even
the recent Creve Coeur case makes it
Uh,
such that we can say no for
for
any
any
reason.
and not get, but it just comes down to, I think, risk
it
of
quick trip?
litigation. I assume.
They actually explained the Creve Coeur case.
I didn't, I've heard bits of them.
Yeah, no, the council rejected, even though they technically met all the requirements, and the Supreme Court ruled that they can reject them for any reason.
It went to the Supreme Court?
It went to the Supreme
This is
Court of Missouri.
This is the quick trip.
It's the quick trip case.
Oh, you're talking about the quick trip, sorry.
Yeah, the
That's-
Creve Coeur,
yeah.
I mean, that was like,
Years ago, yeah.
it wasn't that many years ago. That's relatively recent.
Yeah.
Actually,
My-
less than 5 years.
Yeah, my parents live off of
Yeah,
Grace.
so you know-
Right there. Yeah.
I mean, it was a stunning decision because they technically met all the requirements, but there's still always the right of counsel to reject. And they don't really have to even explain why in Missouri. It's not true in other states.
And again, and that's why under this ordinance draft, we are changing it from a permitted use by right to a special permit, which requires a council in that process. Going back to addressing the question regarding the noise standards here. So we created a little website page here that has information from 1STL. They've been consolidating a lot of information. They're kind of a sub of East West Gateway, and then other data that we've collected and from the other communities that have been doing work on there, and then making sure that our information is accessible to the public. The standards for the noise mitigation that we had was here. They have to provide existing noise levels, predict future noise impacts, identify noise sensitive areas, compare them to the federal highways, noise scale, and try to keep them below 65, I believe, is how it's set. And then, yeah, and then the generators are restricted from certain times and usages.
Good.
Okay, so was everybody's thoughts on the 300 versus 500?
I don't know. I've got a strong preference between the two, to be honest. I think if our goal is to be restrictive, let's just go with 500.
I don't disagree. Does
Good.
anyone feel strongly the other one? I think let's go 500. All right,
That's how it's set.
very good.
All right.
I raised this with Carlos the other day because of the data center, but the other looming issue is warehousing of immigrants, and whether or not they can use that the government can come in and just take one of our manufacturing facilities and turn it into an ICE facility. And I'd like to know more about what we would do in that instance through our zoning process. If the federal government just decides, like they're doing all over the country, just we're buying that and we're housing people there and we don't have to go through anything else. And that concerns me probably more even than the data center.
And there's two components on that. One, only if the government's up front, the federal government is going to have some exemptions that are things that we are not going to be relayed. And government entities are exempt from zoning in there. What would be the main caveat was the building codes, and ultimately, especially like the structures that are located here. I mean, you for something like that, not knowing enough of this, I mean, you start getting into an assembly use, which then leads to specific fire requirements, bathroom requirements, and things that a lot of these warehouses are not designed and set up to. So it's not to say that it isn't impossible to do in there, but the building code would address those issues. And the key part of what we need to find out is like how much information is going to be provided to us as a municipal government, and what some of these other communities have kind of faced. It was like, it's us and we're doing it no matter what, or so. But I think the building codes are pretty good in terms of of overseeing that type of conversion. But ultimately, the zone, we won't be allowed to zone another government type of entity. And we run this, continuously with Old Bonham School or in other government organizations like that, because logos, Emmanuel, and Emmanuel being somewhat unique because again, now it's a church in there, though they always lead to some type of issues. But we have the federal government data center right across the creek on Hilltop and Arrowhead in there, so it's not that far out. But we'll take a look at the key would be like finding a community that's just had that experience in there, and see how much information they were even given prior to that type of use.
Wow. That is. Well, never even honestly, I didn't even, should have thought of it, but I didn't.
One day for 10,000 people.
Right,
Crazy stuff.
right. Yeah, right. Okay. Um,
Right.
Any more discuss? I don't
Ju-
think we
ju-
need to discuss that anymore.
Just a little bit in here because we didn't spend a lot of time on the comprehensive plan update, but there's a couple of you that were not here at the last meeting. So we've set up this table, and we're identifying each of the comprehensive plan goals, and then the different types of actions that can take place. We've kind of categorized this in terms of reflecting what council's priorities were and what things we can kind of hit right away and start looking at. The intent of the section up here on top was dealing with residential affordability and things that we can start looking at: new residential districts, height and bulk standards, green construction, short-term rentals, accessory structures, ADUs, and updating our land use code. That's where we're focused in there. Don was going to be putting together some maps, excuse me, for us to use, and that will be somewhat similar to this one. I actually got Indian Meadows. It wasn't the Northeast. So we're going to kind of focus on the Northeast quadrant first, because it's a little bit more manageable, and there's about 5 different residential housing types that are located here, and see what opportunities we could create to create more customized zoning districts for those. Like here you have 50-foot to 75-foot wide lots. Here you have 75 to 100-foot wide lots. And then kind of create what the term has been used, like pattern language, where you can show somebody, okay, this is your lot, this is your house here. And if you wanted to get to a 2-car garage, these are different patterns you can try to follow and to try to achieve that on there. So we'll try to get those more specific for our next meeting in April.
Sorry, Carlos,
Mhm.
can you clarify? We'd always talked about one thing about all of that is we have one kind of residential zoning
Correct.
district. And I thought generally, again, this gets to an equity issue or class issue too, in the sense of like other cities who have had like 10 of them or something like that, then you might be like, okay, well, this district can have the small ones and this can have this and no brick and things like that, where these have this and you get the richer area or things like that. And we're hopefully trying to avoid that, was the thought.
Correct. Well, there'll be 2 things. One, we're looking at it in the terms of lot sizes, as opposed to trying to
Okay,
dictate.
if it's by lot size, that's
Yeah, it wouldn't,
Well,
we wouldn't, the
yeah.
general character and design, it's a good question. Something we'll try to stay cognizant is, because if I was to build a house, the general design standards are going to be based on, the residential redevelopment design manual, and they're going to be coming through this commission. The district itself isn't going to give any leeway to say all brick or
Okay, that was my concern is I didn't, because even if we did by lot size, north of Olive's lot size is smaller, so I want to be very careful. We're not, I, again, I'm not as deep into it yet, but I'm
No.
generally very reserved.
And it-
But we have smaller lots south of Olive.
Correct.
We
That-
do, but yeah, so I'm very hesitant, but it sounds like that's not where you're headed.
Correct. And I think like what I envision is, and again, I'm using the northeast quadrant because of its size and it's something, it's a good case study area, but, lots that are here, along Alice and south of Alice are not very different than the lots within Chevy Chase. And looking at the setbacks, the lot widths, lot areas,
It'll
but
be
not
easier.
necessarily design
It'll be
construction.
easier, I think, once you have them, see
Mhm.
it, so, okay.
Okay. Good question, though. I appreciate that outlook. All right, so we'll get those for the April 2nd meeting, and let me get back to that. So that's all I have, Chairman,
Good,
on that.
good. All right, that sounds great. I guess we'll move on to, there's still nobody in attendance, right?
No, sir.
Does anybody have any public comments that they would like to make? Okay, we'll move on. We'll go on to other business meeting minutes. And before us, I see the February 19th meeting minutes. Are we all caught up? Getting closer, getting closer. We're good. All right, fantastic. Well, if anybody has any questions or clarifications, please contact Jack. All right, we'll move on to reports. Carlos?
Just a couple of things. There's the events that are listed on the slideshow. Just remember our next meeting on March 19th will be canceled. In there, and so our first meeting will be April 2nd. And there right now, Mr. Carswell's working with 2 petitioners on pools. And again, I think within the code, we've managed to find and work with them in an effort that they may not have to come to the commission for their review in there, which will give us more time to focus on the comprehensive plan. The council will be considering, we'll have public hearings next Tuesday, one for the data centers, the other one for the rooftop solar panels, residential rooftop solar panels on their agenda. Outside of that, the brass tap has opened. They opened on Monday. In there, if you get the opportunity, their grand opening date though is going to be in April, I believe. So they still haven't had their ribbon cutting ceremony in there. Paris Baguette, I'm anticipating probably late April or May. Not specifically for building construction, but last I talked to her, they sent everybody to DC to go get training and all that. So I'm assuming all that does take time in the process. Irvington Place Apartments, they're doing final inspections, I think tomorrow, and probably look about 2 weeks before probably occupancy is coming in. Sidewalk looks great. You ever get a chance to walk there? That neighborhood is now fully interconnected within the sidewalk grid of the city. And so that's been a long time coming. But glad to answer any other questions, Chairman.
I don't have any. Anybody else? All right, thanks, Brian.
Carlos mentioned the brass tap, which is exciting, so get a chance. And then the Holly Festival this weekend, just a call out is they are not allowing parking at Stacy Park this year. And they're definitely not encouraging it on the streets, but there is a free shuttle that has been worked out with the community, and it's actually gonna park up here on Olive. What's the behind which
The
I
US
think
Bank.
the US Bank,
Yeah.
the old US Bank in the back parking lot, so a lot of parking lot.
Future
no
Mercy.
parking, but yeah, Future Mercy. And then there's gonna be shuttles running. I asked if they're gonna have trash bags on the seats, because that's gonna be, if you've done Holly Festival, it's awesome, but you get dirty. Like with the colors, it's amazing. It's fun. I'm excited to be able to walk to it and make the family kind of get rid of stuff in the mudroom. But it's a great place. Hopefully the weather will be good and not too rainy or anything like that. But yeah, they didn't want parking in that situation. So that's just something to call out. And then understanding traffic stops, just a community program with the police, just for new drivers, especially if you want to understand what happens on the traffic stop. Be April 23rd. You can sign up online as well. So that's what I have.
Good. Thanks, Brian. Anyone else have anything they'd like to add?
I think one more thing, Chairman, I'll let Dawn kind of talk about it, but she has on the website to vote for your to nominate your favorite businesses for this year. You can easily get to the directory, a dining guide, and then go and take your survey.
And if you need to confirm that the restaurant is in Olivet, there is a handy dandy map right there too. Which is usually not a problem, but it is open. Please vote. You have up per form or per survey, you can submit 3 businesses or up to 3 businesses and up to 3 restaurants. So I know you guys all shop and eat here as much as I do, if not more.
If the restaurant's on the border of U City, can we still vote for it?
There are
I'm
no
joking.
such
yeah.
things.
Yeah. Trying to bring it back to trees, but
Yeah.
We do have
You're getting a lot of submissions.
You know what? I actually just got back from vacation,
Oh.
so I prioritized this meeting and I have not checked it.
All right. Good, good.
All right. Well, I appreciate your voting. Thank you.
Okay, if nothing else further, we will adjourn at 8:12. Thanks.
Oh, it's a record.
8:15.
I'm not saying one word in this meeting. You can see I break my own.
Can't
say
help
my
yourself.
tongue.
Can't help yourself.
Well, I just,
That was good discussion.
yeah, I mean, like, I just want to be more efficient and not so. Build a small.